And James, you're letting people in, right? From the waiting room.
We have everyone in now.
Okay, good. Thanks. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bob Stefanski, and welcome to the virtual exchange. This one is organized by WMO, the Global Water Partnership, the partners of IDMP, the Integrated Drought Management Program, and with UNCCD, our good colleagues in Bonn, Germany. I'm just going to give it another minute here for people to join. We have a good program for today, hour and a half. We have about 3 speakers who are going to talk about what happened at the COP16 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia last December. And just that's the title of this virtual exchange, on the stalemate on drought at COP16, charting the path forward. Okay. So again, just want to point out this is jointly organized by the IDMP partners and UNCCD Secretariat. And James, next slide. And I hope you can hear me well. Okay, here is the agenda for today's hour and a half. I'll provide some brief updates on the Integrated Drought Management Program. And then Birgit Lamanza will give us a overview, introduction on what happened at COP16. Then have Valentin Eich moderate, again with Birgit from the UNCCD Secretariat as the panelists, Michael Bundrup, former chair of the Intergovernmental Working Group on Drought, and Rodrigo Ramirez from the Ministry of Agriculture in Chile. Also, as we go forward, please introduce yourself in the chat so we can all see who's who. And again, this will be recorded, and we will share the slides once the meeting is over. We will then have a question and answer discussion. And then, as typical of doing these virtual exchanges, there's a brief marketplace on colleagues to inform us what is going on in their institutions and of interest to the global drought community. And then we'll have some closing remarks. So next slide, please. So again, the big event, the 2 big events, to be honest, last year was the Drought Resilience +10 conference in Geneva, Switzerland, from the end of September 30th to October 2nd. Again, some of you are aware of this. We had over 1,000 participants, 275 in person and over 730 online. Quite successful. We had 9 work streams. You can see the work streams there. And also, we'll have links where you can go to the website to find more information on the conference and work streams. Next slide, please. And also, there's a QR code there. I'll wait a little bit so people can actually, that's a QR code that links directly to these conclusions and recommendations. And just very briefly, the key takeaways from the Drought Resilience +10 conference was we need to integrate we need integrated, proactive, and prospective drought management to cope with drought. Cross-sectoral and whole of society approaches must be integrated into national drought policies. Strengthening data sharing and monitoring systems is crucial. Drought action is central to sustainable development, climate adaptation, and early warnings for all. There is a critical need to mobilize resources and strengthen political will for drought resilience. And these messages were presented at the COP16 of UNCCD in Saudi Arabia in December 2024. I just want to give a acknowledgement and thanks to all the partners. You see the logos below there on the slide. It could not be done without them. Some of these institutions also provided some funds, which was extremely helpful. Next slide, please. And just to add, we have been active since the +10. So there is an article, a comment on drought resilience demands urgent global actions and cooperation in Nature Water, Volume 3. And there is the link there. And actually, I will try to also put that in the chat as we go along. So that was, yeah. Oh, the code didn't work. Sorry, Martha, thanks for that. We'll put some links in the chat as the meeting goes along. So that's good to know. Next slide. So just an update on various IDMP activities. Again, with our cooperating with the online course, Monitoring and Early Warning. I believe this is with CapNet and other partners. This is on the Pillar 1. You can see there we've had actually the latest round, 440 people started, 210 people finished. That's in English, also some people in French. So we're continuing to do this. In fact, a new course on Pillar 2 on vulnerability and drought assessment will be launched in June of 2025. Next slide. We've been doing some work with a consultant, David Walker, the previous year in 2024. This is some of the requests we received on how can countries start with a drought plan. So this is the World Drought Legislation Repository and tools for the assessment and drafting of drought legislation. And we're finalizing this tool that will be hopefully published sometime in Q2 of 2025. Next slide. Also with our colleagues from the Global Water Partnership, and I believe also with FAO, we analyzed gender equality and social inclusion in national drought plans. So we had some consultants do some work on this, and this will also be something that will be published very soon. So this gender equality and social inclusion mainstreaming is an essential tool for drought resilience. This publication will have methods to review drought plans with this perspective. And then how does this interaction between national drought plans, national action plans, and drought policies are done in the context of gender equality and social inclusion. Next slide. Again, these are some publications that we are ongoing, that are in various stages of editing and being produced. A baseline assessment of drought impact collection monitoring efforts with our distinguished colleagues from the U.S. National Drought Mitigation Center. Next slide. And the follow-up is guidelines on drought impacts data collection. Again, you can see, again, the Global Water Partnership, WMO, the U.S. National Drought Mitigation Center, and David Walker are involved in that as well. So hopefully those are coming out very soon. Next slide. One thing we're very proud of, and again, this is thanks to Durgana and our colleagues at the Global Water Partnership. We have an integrated drought management program community of practice. Currently, we have 231 members. So this is an online platform where we can share information, build capacities, foster intersectoral cooperation, promote the integrated drought management approach, among other things. And, again, the places for discussions. We also have very good colleagues who work on the drought and the Anthropocene forum or activity. Again, we share knowledge, and then engagement opportunities are also welcome to be promoted and exchanged on the community of practice. Next slide, please. And that's what I have. So we will then turn to actually an interactive question. We have a Polev question, and I think we have a slide on that. If James, I believe, you have something to show. So this is an interactive sort of survey on our cell phones. And yeah, it's coming. There we go. So just to start things off in this discussion on what happened at COP16 and the next steps, you can see there's in the chat, James has the link. And so just a simple 5 questions or 5 choices. Did you follow the drought discussions at the UNCCD COP16 that was held in Riyadh? So this is just to start the interactive session here. So we have a number of people already attended. I can't see. Trying to think of how many people have responded. I just see percentages. So actually, majority of people are aware or followed either in person, online, or read about it afterwards. About a third of you did not have the time, and that's understandable. That's also one thing with the partners, WMO, GWP, and also the UNCCD Secretariat. One of our goals actually is this virtual exchange to further promote and advocate for the activities of UNCCD after the COP16 in this intersessional period where we have about a year and a half until the next COP17, which I believe will be held in Mongolia. So there's the, James, if I can just tell me or somebody how many people have responded. Or maybe in the chat. I'm just trying to get an idea. But again, about a third have intended, a third or more have followed online or afterward, and a third did not have time, which probably is what to be expected. So this poll will still be active, but just to make sure the program continues, that is our first interactive session. I will now like to introduce Birgi Lemenzana, our distinguished colleague from the UNCCD Secretariat, and she will provide introduction on what happened at COP16 regarding drought. Birgi, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob, and welcome all the participants for this exchange. This is very important. I will take you through just a summary of what has been done and what was the COP16 for us, with a particular focus on drought. And thank you for doing this survey before my intervention. As you're sharing, I will keep on saying next slide, and then I will move from that, please. So, as most of you were at COP, you have seen that this was the largest and most inclusive UNCCD COP. In fact, we had decisions, like 39 decisions adopted. And I will hint a bit on some of which one was adopted. We were more than 29,000 registered for the blue zone, more than 33 registered in the green zone, because for the first time we had at least 2 sides of our COP. It was the first time we were having a blue zone and a green zone. We had 176 parties represented, 580 side events. I must confess that I only attended few of them, but I heard that it was very live. We had action agenda, each day having a particular agenda, a topic day, one which we co-organized also with the involvement of WMO World Bank, was the Drought Resilience Day. And we have a high-level segment, ministerial dialogue on the resilience, drought resilience, ministerial dialogue on financing, ministerial dialogue on land. We have more than 3,500 civil society organizations represented, and also private sector. The fact that we had civil society, indigenous people and local communities led also to a decision which had on coming up with not only the gender caucus, but also a youth caucus and the indigenous people caucus. Next, please. So it has been a big COP where several decisions, as I mentioned, were adopted on land degradation, Riyadh Global Drought Resilience Partnership, which I will develop a bit more, which look into how to continue supporting countries, more than 80 eligible countries, for project preparation, but also for guidance, for criteria for policy advocacy, how to continue with Africa Green Wall, both in the Sahel and in the South, with pledges, financial pledges for both, the Peace Forest Initiative, supported by Korea, the G20 Land Restoration Initiative, which have also its own setting and pavilion with a lot of pledges, the Rangeland Flagship Initiative. You remember when we were going to COP, there were countries championed the rangeland, in Botswana and also Mongolia, and it's ended up with a decision on the rangeland, where now we are working together with partners, with Mongolia, but to set up and see how to take it forward, moving to our COP17 and the year of rangeland, which is on 2026. The gender, with the gender caucus, the information products, lot of side events related to gender, and then the land tenure, building up on the different consultation, the national consultation held previously with the compendium of grants. So based on the decision we had, we are moving forward in the follow-up in all these decisions to see how we can continue and what is needed. And right now it's where, being it on the land degradation, the Riyadh Global Drought Resilience, the gender, the land tenure, or the sand and dust storm, where we are working to our leading on the global sand and dust storm initiative with the UN coalitions and the different centers, with KSA, but also with WMO. The science policy outlooks, the GLO 3, and moving forward with different thematic GLO reports and the different engagement. Next. For all these decisions I mentioned previously had drought in their core, and are also touching in one and another way on the drought, on how we could continue the dialogue on drought. But the most focused and relevant ones was also the launch of the Riyadh Global Drought Resilience Partnership, which has COP mobilized 2.15 billion to support drought resilience. Right now, we are working with the COP presidency to define the governance of the structure and the operationalization of this partnership. Let me say that is focusing to support 80 countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And then we have also mobilized the drought resilience and land restoration through 10 billion by the Arab Coordination Group and other financial partners. So all this were done while we were also engaging in the COP decision on drought itself. So next, please. So when we were looking into the drought decisions, we went into COP with a very well prepared, thanks to all members of the IWG on drought and all the countries, with a decisions or a proposition of decisions and options for the countries to look into and to adopt, amend, or reject. These drought decisions were introduced the second day, and it took us the whole 2 weeks in a change in negotiations. And I want here to also thank all the focal points for all the regions, but also our negotiators who were engaged really in day and early morning, late night and early morning negotiations in the contact group. Very constructive, worked hard, but at the end, we didn't have decisions, but we had a procedural decisions. These procedural decisions was not saying, let's close the shop of drought and go home, but saying that we have reached this far, but time were still needed for countries to continue exchanging and to come to a common understanding on the different positions, because as we have seen in COP, there were different positions from different regions, some more inclined on having a protocol on drought and others more against and pushing for a framework or some hybrid sort of it. So this was where we brought something at COP. We had very constructive, very engaging, in-depth consultations, and we end up with, we haven't finished the business, it's the unfinished business. We still need to continue to talking to bring this to COP17. So what we are trying to do now as a secretariat is to look into these decisions and look into the all 39 decisions we have and previous decision on COP, because from COP13, drought was building up in the agenda of UNCCD and all the decisions, and to see how we can continue to keep the momentum, to continue the dialogue ongoing. So we look into how we could do it, because we could, the Intergovernmental Working Group on Drought has closed, they finished their work. The procedural decision give us still the mandate to continue changing, and this type of platform is one of them. But when it's come to more government side, we have to have the COP presidents to lead this process. And right now, it's what we are working with the COP presidency of Saudi to see how they can organize these dialogues, how they could use other platform like IDRA, but also their own capacity as a co-presidents to bring the parties together to continue this dialogue, to give them space to express themselves, all the regions, and picking back on the momentum we have with the Drought Resilience Partnership and the engagement of these partners to still continue working on drought and supporting the countries. Next, please. So I talked about the Riyadh Global Drought Resilience Partnership. So this is where we have the partnership starting with the 80, with the pledges made at COP, but where we are still continuing to see what will be the governance and how to initiate these conversations. We had already IDRA, the International Drought Resilience Alliance, and at COP, we launched also the International Drought Resilience Observatory, which is a tool that will help the countries fill some of the identified gap after assessing the already existing observatory, building on them and trying to see how it's complement to bring it all together. So this was launched at COP17, and it will be used. There is a typo here. It's not at COP17. It's at COP16. Sorry. And then the fact that we have the IDMP members who still looking and working together to continue engaging with Jeff to ensure the establishment of a drought. And I think my colleague Daniel is already, and Valentine has met, and they are working together with Jeff to see how to continue pushing for this, to have an independent drought as an independent integrated program at Jeff 9, and to see how to consolidate it. So based on the last work, more than 66 countries have a drought plan. Now the next step will be, how do we turn this national drought plan into an investment plan? So we, together with the global mechanism in-house and others, we are trying to see how to work on practical guidelines to build this drought resilience value chain and models for drought investment at country level. There's many interests from countries. Right now we are exchanging with countries from LAC, which reach out, and other countries which are looking into how to turn this national drought plan into really an investment plan so that it can make a difference on the ground. We are focusing also on the capacity building, the community of learning and practices in close collaboration with the GWP, and also all the knowledge products we launched at COP, how to draw lesson, harness lesson from these community of learning of practices, but also on some of the key products like the Drought Atlas, and then follow up on the Drought Resilience Plus 10 conference, which Bob has summarized very well in the beginning, using some setting and platform like the UN Water Conferences, the World Water Week, to continue the dialogue on the drought. And next, please. So these are, while looking into these products, working also with the science policy interface to strengthen the science, building on the drought, the World Drought Atlas, the economic of drought, organizing some webinar. Daniel is leading this with some of the partners, and trying to see that even without a programmatic COP decision as we know it, as we have a procedural decision, we can continue the dialogue and keep the momentum, because it will not make us good to just sit and wait at COP17, because then it will be worse than what we have in COP16 because of the new geopolitical setting, and then within 2 years, everything can fade and we will lose momentum. So that's what we are doing right now, working with partners and trying to keep the fire burning and to continue the dialogue so that we will all be on board to give ourselves some ideas, put our skills together, and then move forward to our COP17. COP17, we had already signed the host country agreement 10 days ago with Mongolia, and we are working with them to set up the date for COP17. It might be maybe toward the third week of the third quarter of the year, because of June will be too close. We will have our CRIC, our Committee of Review of the Implementation of the Convention. We'll have it in December. Having a CRIC in December will not allow us to have enough time to prepare for a COP on June. So we are trying to push a bit and have it toward mid 2026. So I think that's what I share, but I think what will be interesting here too is to give us ourselves some ideas on what we put forward, but how are we really trying to engage the countries to come together, to pick it where they left it, not with the same tension, but on a common ground, on common understanding, to see what will be the best way forward for drought. And how do we work together so that we come and have a positive harvest at COP17. Next, and I think that's almost what I had to share. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Daniel is connected. Daniel Segai, our expert for drought in-house, is connected. And then we are really, both of us, happy to respond to any questions and to see how together we can move this going forward. Thank you very much. Over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Birgit, for that excellent overview. Yeah, there's some comments in the chat. Again, I think you answered the question. It will happen sometime next year in 2026, possibly in the third quarter, the COP17. I'd like to go, and I know there might be some questions, but I think let's move on to the panel discussion. And then we have an opportunity for questions to everyone, including Birgit, at the end of this podium discussion. So thank you, Birgit, again. That's a great introduction. And I'll now pass to my colleague, Valentin Eich, who will moderate the podium discussion. Over to you, Valentin.
Thank you very much, Bob, for introducing me. So I'm very excited to moderate this session. Since we will have, I think, very, very good views on what actually happened at the UNCCD COP last year, at the end of last year. And sorry, I just need to. Yeah, and therefore I'll thank you very much, Birgit, for your very nice presentation, which I think sets perfectly the scene, so we don't need to really introduce anything anymore. And so since Bob already introduced you, I would like to welcome you again on the virtual stage here on our podium. Next, I would like to introduce Michael Bruntrup. He is an agricultural engineer and holds a PhD in agriculture and economy. He's a senior researcher at the German Institute of Development and Sustainability, IDOS, in Bonn. And yeah, most important that we invited him for this podium discussion is that he was the chair of the Intergovernmental Working Group, the IWG, of the last session. And so we really hope to get a very good inside view on what actually happened regarding drought. And next, I would like to introduce Rodrigo Andrade Ramirez to our stage. He is working with the Ministry of Agriculture of Chile, and he is the UNCCD focal point of Chile to the convention. And I think what impresses me most of his CV is actually that he's also an active forest fighter in Chile, which I think is in these days where we hear more about drought and compound events with forest fires, something that gives you really a very tangible connection to drought. So thanks to all of you already for joining us here. And first, perhaps we would like to have a little bit of a forensic view on what actually happened. So we heard from Birgi the facts that there was actually no decision on drought, and now we would like to understand the background. As IWG chair, what is your explanation, Michael, on what happened at COP16?
Yeah, thank you. Let me try to share my observations. I mean, that is, of course, a subjective one, but I want to start with our preparations in the IWG, the Intergovernmental Working Group on Drought. And I think a little bit we have foreseen what could happen. And with the very polarized thinking about protocol or not, because that was the elephant in the room. Always was the question, would there be a binding protocol or another form of binding agreement or not? And if not, what other types could be there? We in the IWG prepared 7 options, of which one, you can also say 2, because there was a protocol and an amendment option, and the amendment would also have been binding. The others were not binding recommendations. So we had a ladder of escalation, if you will, or de-escalation from the protocol to very simple recommendations, for example, for support from the global mechanism or more funding through the GEF. So what happens then in the, and with that we went into the COP. And then what happened at COP is the group, the contact group, collapsed all these options into 2, let's say into one larger text, where in the end, only one word was to be negotiated, binding or not binding. All the other options on finance, on technical support were collapsed into a nicely elaborated, negotiated text, as Birgi said, but they left the key issue, which was, in my opinion, clear already, that this would provoke a confrontation, was left open to the last day. So in the last day, the text which was there was nicely elaborated, but the word binding and that let's say that key confrontation was then the reason for a non-agreement, because there were one party which said necessarily we want a binding agreement, and that was then, however you call it, it was a text there that I would call it a protocol version, and there was one other party openly saying, we do not only want no binding agreement, we do not accept any pathway which could lead to a binding agreement. And that, of course, there is no overlap, no compromise between these two, no? Because you could have thought with a little sort of flexibility, you start negotiation on that nice text, and in the end, you decide then whether that would be binding for all, maybe for some, or it would be left as a non-binding agreement in the kind of the Montreal global framework. Okay, and then, yeah, we have all been in, or many of us have been in the room when it was finally decided there is no decision, and then everything was reversed. For every single paragraph was reversed into not agreed. That is what is my observation of it. I think, personally, sorry to say it, I think the negotiators and the Saudi Arabian mediators did not early enough see what was happening there, and that they cannot overcome these very controversial and exclusionary points of view. And behind the party, let's say, let's openly say Africans were in favor of that protocol, and there were one party, I don't mention the name now, which was against it. But of course, within a setting of the convention, every party has a veto power. So one party is enough to stop any negotiation from coming into a decision. And now we know that this one party is not the only one who is in principle against a binding agreement. So the one was very outspoken, but I'm almost sure that at COP16, if that one party would not have positioned itself as clearly as it did, others would have come up and say, no, in the end, protocol binding is not the way that our governments can support. And that is, and maybe we discussed that in a second round, as long as these positions exist, the existing text which has been negotiated there doesn't help, because it does not resolve these two extreme positions. And there needs to be something, in inter-period negotiation, which tries to find a compromise on this. Because if nothing happens, the same constellation will happen again, maybe not between Africa and X, but then between Africa and Y. The conflict is not resolved, and the text as it stands is nice, but it really does not help in overcome this two discipline. I want to close with that. I hope we have a little bit more time to think about what happens with that situation to the UNCCD. If drought becomes an ever-lasting stalemate at UNCCD, what that would mean to the UNCCD, and also what could then be done to prepare for COP17. I hope we have the time for that in the next round. I stop here now as a forensic analysis, as you call it.
Thanks a lot, Michael. I think this was very, very insightful. And to all of us who were not in the room when this was discussed, really, really good to understand what actually happened and how complex these negotiations are then at the end. And it can really come down to one word, no, as we understand. So, and you saw this from a kind of neutral position as the IWG chair. So I would like to hear now from Rodrigo, your perspective from Chile, who is known to be kind of a proactive country when it comes to drought. Rodrigo, what do you think? What happened at COP?
Well, first of all, hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this exchange. To begin with, we must acknowledge the efforts of the Secretariat and the host country to find solutions, and at the same time say that the efforts of COP16 negotiations were absolutely insufficient to face the challenge of drought. From our side, the most problematic issue was the inflexibility of parties, because this inflexibility was not considered, doesn't consider the previous 3 years of exchange, conversations, almost negotiations during the IWG on drought effort. There were almost 3 years when we had the opportunity to exchange our points of views, and we were not able to get and build a common position. In the end, in the 2 weeks of the COP16 in Riyadh, the parties presents their own position, and those positions were very inflexible from our point of view, of course. I'm not sure at the moment if the dual position of legally or not legally binding is a good are good elements to continue discussing to the future, because we have to have in mind that almost 80% of the global population will face the effects of droughts in the next 20 or 30 years. So I don't know. I have a very criticized position of all of us. Of course, I don't can't sign only one party to explain the fail of the COP16, of course. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rodrigo. Yeah, and I completely understand. I think we're there all on the same page that we don't want to blame anybody, but of course we need to find a way forward. And this, I would like to spend the rest of our time for the discussions to really be more forward-looking. And I think there are a lot of things on the table. Birgi, I will ask you next what from the Secretariat perspective. Also something that most of you, I guess, followed last week in Rome, the CBD, UNCCD COP16 came actually to a nice conclusion. And last year, of course, we saw the same stalemate there at the UNCCD, the CBD COP happening, and they found an alternative way, so they met again. Perhaps, Birgi, from you, first of all, what is the plan now of the Secretariat to go forward towards COP17, that we don't start, as Michael already projected, at the same dead end again? And why was no other solution actually suggested?
Yeah, thank you. As you know, we are Secretariat, so we just follow what the parties really want to do and how they can take it moving forward. Many things happened as COP. Parties were really engaged, and everyone is fighting for what he believes is good for his own region and his own country. This is understandable. The fact that we don't have a COP decision which will allow, you mentioned and compare a bit with CBD, but we were not in the same position. CBD had a decision which allows them to have a COP16.1 or 0.2. So which make them having some fund to reconvene and to work on the unfinished business. For us, we had all our decision, and the procedural decision was to resume at COP17. Meaning that if we follow through even the decision, you will just go sit back and say you don't have a decision, so you don't do anything, which the Secretariat thought with the COP presidency that is not a way. So it's why we have analyzed all the decisions where drought is mentioned. And as Michael pointed out rightly, many of the soft things was already mentioned, some here and how on the financing. So we had drought in GM decisions, we have drought in SBI decisions, we have drought some, but not a consolidated way, heavy way, where what we were looking for at COP. So now, both what Rodrigo and Michael said is really what we have on the table. So it's why we think that we need to have a mediator, a facilitator, because we cannot continue, we cannot keep fold the paper here and say at COP we resume and we present the procedure, because all what we had agreed during the 2 weeks of negotiation, lengthy night and early morning negotiations, was reversed at the last moment. So meaning that we have a text, but which was like non-agreed, but everything was agreed except the elephant in the room. So we need to put maybe all this on the table now for the countries to look and see, but also bring maybe a third party to look into and see how do we get out of these polarized positions. Maybe even this position has moved now a bit with the geopolitics which we are seeing in all the continent. How are we analyzing it? And what is the best way for the countries? Because at the end, it's the countries and the communities and the populations which are facing drought, both in their livelihood, in their health, in their economy. So it's what we have to look into. And we don't have a solution. As a secretariat, we are listening, but trying to see how can we continue this dialogue in a more constructive way so that by COP17, we arrive there with a very a kind of clear way forward for a harvesting something and coming to a decision. I think that, and this is a reflection which also I did after that, because I must say that it was really tough even for us as Secretariat at this type of negotiation. But I know that it's also more heavy and more difficult for most of our NFPs involved and our negotiator, which again, I thanks a lot really for their engagement. If we were dreaming and say we have another IWG, which we don't have because we don't have funding for that, we don't have mandate for that, we wouldn't go maybe to the COP with 7 options. Maybe we would have affronted the elephant in the room, maybe in Chile, maybe in Riyadh, when we were all smoothing the atmosphere and building the hot potatoes for the COP to take the decisions there. We analyzed everything with the SOP, everything, but we didn't give a clear ranking. We didn't give a clear kind of way forward, as that it was not in the mandate also of the group. But let us base maybe on this and on this lesson, think about how do we get out of this? Maybe some other protocols of, I don't want to say that it's a protocol, but some other events. I want to take the example for the ozone protocol, which I know when I was at UNEP was also a hot potato, but where some facilitators came and helped to find one way or another, what is best for the community. I think at the end is what we want. Let me stop here.
Thanks a lot, Birgit. Yeah, I think there's a lot to discuss, and of course, the role of the Secretariat is also always a very critical to facilitate the right actions. And I know Rodrigo has to leave us earlier, so my next question will be to you, Rodrigo. The same, like I don't think that Chile or you can accept that nothing will happen until next COP, and we heard from Birgit that things are brewing in the background. So over to you. What is your perspective? What should happen and what will happen until next COP?
Well, so sorry, Michael. I will speak previously to you because I have to leave the meeting in 8 more minutes. Okay. Well, we have to consider the international situation that is very different than the previous year. We will face the next COP17 in Mongolia, and the next one during in the middle of a government, very important government that is negationist of the climate change and their effects, of course. And that country is very powerful. That is it's a very, very bad multilateral situation, considering that in our convention, we were not be able to get an agreement. In the climate change convention, they were not able to get enough money to manage the goals that they by themselves the agreement that they get, and the CBD convention were not able to finish and get an agreement, and I think they are finishing at the moment in Rome, I guess. So we have to have in mind this situation and be clear, be honest that if we will be able to get something important in Mongolia in 2 more years. That we have to remember that in COP16 in Riyadh, we were not able, and in Abidjan, in the previous one, happened the same, you know. So trying to answer your question, Valentin, we have not to waste time until COP17. We have to do things together to move fast, to get some previous agreement in advance, because if we waste this time, this values time until this moment, we will be failing in advance, unfortunately. So that is our position, that is our proposition. At the same time, we have to move together, to move now at the moment, because we are facing, in Chile, we are facing a drought of 22 years. So that is impacting our economy, our food production, our human possibilities of growth and survival. So we have to move fast now at the moment and create a new political momentum until the next COP16 in Mongolia. And I don't know what we have to do. Maybe integrated approach of drought in the three conventions can be a good way to manage this big, enormous challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Yeah, and I think this was a very good comment actually to close the discussion, but we're not there yet. Of course, we will have further points. And what you mentioned last, that we should go perhaps and look beyond the UNCCD. I think, yeah, we couldn't agree in one convention. Would it be easier if we take the discussion now to 3 conventions? Perhaps this is something that Michael can answer us, and perhaps Michael as well think a little bit beyond. What would be your suggestion, how we would move now to get to the so much needed success that Rodrigo also spoke about?
Yeah, let me try. First of all, what happens if UNCCD is not able to reconvene and to reconcile on drought? Of course, UNFCCC is there. They see drought as an adaptation issue. And so it falls under the broad categories of adaptation. And I fear for 2 things if that happens. First of all, drought as an adaptation issue is insufficient. We have natural drought. We have drought which is provoked by water and landscape degradation. I don't know the shares of it, but certainly drought is more than only an adaptation, climate change adaptation issue. And the second, so that is one danger if drought is shifting to the UNFCCC. The second is if we weaken, but if this drought shifts away from UNCCD, I see also a risk that the UNCCD as a whole will be weakened. And what is the rest of the UNCCD? It is about soil and land management, where many countries have already invested enormously in supporting the UNCCD. So all those countries who are relaxed in saying, okay, we are not so much interested in drought, but land is a key issue, they should also think that they weaken the platform on which they are negotiating the land issues, from land, soil, land tenure, all these things. That is of course, it's my personal thinking. Maybe you can imagine also an issue where drought under the 3 conventions is highlighted and lifted. I see the risk of the opposite, as I say, because I see UNFCCC is so important and so powerful, and their drought is only one of the adaptation things. So I see that as an agriculture economist, always climate change for me was so much involved with agriculture, and I see agriculture receives so little attention at the UNFCCC in the climate change. There comes my doubt from that is a good strategy. If we want to keep issues, the drought solved within the UNCCD, I think, and Birgi has already mentioned, one is there are 3 pathways, which I say presidency. The secretariat is really handicapped. due to the lack of a decision on it, we cannot expect very much from the Secretariat. Sorry to say it. Of course, you use all the other decisions, but on the core, you are really handicapped. The presidency can do a lot if he is engaged together with the future presidency. That is one pathway. And if you are already in discussion with them, that is, of course, very good. The second is UNCCD is a member-driven institution convention. So members can take, like in other conventions, they do much more proactive engagement in form. And so alliances, for example, the African group, I know that they are now trying to resume and to analyze what has happened and maybe start a new efforts. No? That could be one. I could also imagine, for example, Chile. We have invited here Chile, that we have strong third countries which can see themselves as a mediator between the two poles. No? Unfortunately, this big country that Rodrigo mentioned will not. I mean, maybe one good solution would be that this member country would leave the UNCCD and give up its veto power, but I don't see that. So we have to live with this veto power. And as I said, there are other countries hiding behind this large ally, and there are other veto players with it. So we shouldn't underestimate resistance also from other. The third, and I think that is the most likely or the most powerful that I see, is IDRA. IDRA is a political platform, and where you have already many of the players from the different camps. There is Senegal and Spain, so a south and a north country. Germany is in it, the US is in it. So that is a powerful platform, and the observancy is nice. It is a nice tool, but I think IDRA should much more invest in what they have most. That is their political convening power, and they could. This is where I see the best opportunity to negotiate, to not to negotiate, but to discuss on a really high level, political level, because the technical things are all solved. It is about the political will to make a compromise, and we need compromise. And the African Union and the African countries will have to compromise because they have seen that they cannot run through the wall. So I think from that side, there will be a willingness to compromise. Now we need to organize other parts of the compromise to make it acceptable for the Africans to compromise. And for this, you need this political will, political power that is within HYDRA. So HYDRA, for me, is the way to go to and to use, let's say, HYDRA to convene UNCCD actors. Of course, that must be within UNCCD. It should be opening up, not only convene to limited to IDRA, but IDRA is that, let's say, that platform who could invite the members and support a secretariat, which up at that moment does not have a mandate to do it. No? You have to see it. The COP decision does not give enough mandate for the, and with that, without mandate, no money, etc. So that is, yeah. So that would be my recommendation, I think, to get this dialogue running again. Let us wait a little bit that the Africans come up with their analysis of what has been happening. And then I don't know whether the Africans are active enough and powerful enough to start it from itself. The presidency is in African, so that is, of course, a very good situation now. But I think with HYDRA together, they are more powerful, more politically influential to really restart these discussions, these debates. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michael, for painting these three ways forward. And I fully agree. I mean, we need IDRA more than ever. And Birgit already had this in her first slides. And we from IDMP are also, of course, happy to facilitate all the activities of IDRA on the way forward to support this with technical support. Now we have a couple of minutes for questions from the floor. I already saw some questions in the chat, but if someone wants to raise the hand and shortly get the floor to ask a questions to either Birgi or Michael, since Rodrigo had to leave,
I
unfortunately.
wanted to react quickly to.
Excuse me, Birgi?
Yeah, it's me.
Birgi has a comment, Valentin.
Sorry, Birgi. I thought I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead, Birgi.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was happy to hear the comment from Rodrigo and also you, Michael. And I want to maybe, for the sake of also putting things together with our convention, UNCCD is the only one who has drought as a mandate in its constitution and is in convention. It's the convention is not only desertification and land, but drought is in the convention. It's in our mandate to deal with drought. Just this to say that this is something why we need to work on that. You mentioned that, I fully agree on having some a facilitator and using other platform. You know, when you have a COP decisions, even previous on 14th, 13th, 14 and 15 decision on scope on drought, this it doesn't stop because you have a COP16. So it's give us mandate to continue working on drought. Because we had a stalemate and at COP16 doesn't say that we don't work on drought. We didn't achieve what was meant by the IWG on drought with having an option, but at least we can continue working. And COP16 presidency has all the power to convene and to convene any discussions on any topic, not only drought, because even COP17 in 2026 will be more focused also on rangeland. So there are many other topics, and SD Sand and Dust Storm is something, a topic dear to the COP16 presidency. So they can really convene things. Now, where we need maybe to be more a bit cautious is to leave the countries themselves to come on what they compromise, who need to be compromised, who need to be not compromised. It's up to them to come and see what can we put on the table, what will be beneficial for our regions, what will be beneficial for our countries and our communities. I wouldn't go further to say Africa need to compromise or Europe need to compromise. It's up to them. And what we need to do, maybe as most of you experts here, is to put all the facts and what will be the consequences and what will be the example of such a tough decisions, tough negotiation in some other, being it an example from CBD. CBD has a framework, CBD have a protocol. How did they go about it? Learning from them and trying to see how can we have all the voices on the table, and it will be up to the countries and the regions, Europe, Africa, LAC, and others to see what will be the best. But I wouldn't point in one region and say this region need to compromise. No. Because they all have their argument, they have all what they have. Let them all bring what they have on the table. And us, as neutral as we could be, bring all the information, all the tools. And if we can also secure some of good negotiators or good facilitators to help them come to a common ground, that will be our task. I just wanted to react here because we cannot take position, say this need to be compromised, this need to be compromised. Yeah, sorry for that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Birgit. I think this was very important and very enlightening. So thanks for coming in. Since we will still have the marketplace, time is getting a little bit short. Perhaps, Michael, there's one question in the chat which might be, which probably is quite straightforward to answer. What were the key arguments for a binding agreement? Was asked by Sheikh Abdelkader Baba. So perhaps you can shortly just explain what the binding, what the protocol actually meant.
Yeah. I mean, the arguments are also in our report. Let me try to resume them. Maybe I forget now something. I remind that we tried only to provide the pros and cons, so arguments in favor and in disfavor of all of the options, without negotiating that, because not only it was not our mandate, it was also, it would have destroyed the atmosphere and the constructive atmosphere in the IWG, no? And we couldn't negotiate, and we didn't want to. We did not even come up with a ranking. We ordered it alphabetically in order to not to avoid any influence or recommendation of what we thought, of some of us would be a good or better solution. Okay, so the key argument for the protocol is certainly whatever. I mean, UNCCD is already binding. It's a convention, so in the end it is binding, but it is not enough. Obviously, there is not enough happening for drought resilience. So the classical argument would be we need something more. If the existing arrangements are not enough, we need something really new, and that would have been the binding protocol. I also think, for example, the examples of the Paris agreements or protocols in other conventions, Montreal Protocol, and so they show also that it is that if there is really something very important within the convention, you can create a protocol which provides special emphasis and is more concrete than maybe the convention itself as a binding text, but the binding text. And also the decisions of the UNCCD usually are binding, but they are formulated in such a way we recommend, we urge, so that's not really such a strong language, no, than a protocol can give. For the rest, I think the rest of the arguments we can then raise more funding, particularly, and that is what I think is a very strong argument for those in favor of a binding protocol. They want to urge or almost enforce their own government to do more on drought, no? Because they say we have a lot of decisions in our countries and laws, but it is not taken very seriously. No? It doesn't, and the biggest source of political will and of funding is not within the international community. It is within the own governments. So a binding protocol enforces own governments to do more. I think that was the biggest, for me, the best argument that I heard. Of course, international money is also for the poor countries, they need it. And the hope was always that a binding protocol would trigger more funding than a non-binding one. This would be the key arguments. And then the counter arguments, just to mention a few, or let's say two, is a protocol must not be signed by every member. No? So many, those countries unwilling to sign a protocol leave with the convention. And of course, if influential and powerful nations do not sign up, then a protocol remains weak. The funding argument remains weak. The binding towards the own governments, of course, remains. So that is the compromise, and that is where we also set a framework which is not binding, but has exactly the same elements. All other technical elements are there. Could maybe lure more parties into signing such a voluntary framework, and then make up the lack of binding is then made up by more voluntary participation by more countries. So that was a trade-off between the framework and the protocol.
Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks to both Birgi and you for joining the session and providing so great insights to really make us understand what happened better. I know there are a lot of questions still in the chat, and I guess also from the audience. I invite you all to join the discussions on our community of practice. I think we will share the link to that in the chat. And Michael and Birgit, if you have some time, perhaps you can also answer one or the other question in the chat while we still have the marketplace. And yeah, then perhaps also we would like to share, before I give it to you, Bob, that we launched the youth competition of IDMP in our sister program, APFM, the flood program, which will be also shared in the chat. So please share this amongst all the young colleagues and friends that you have in our community. And with that, thanks again, Birgit and Michael, for joining us and for this very interesting discussions. Let's hope we let's continue that online, and let's work all together to come up with a good solution until next COP. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Bob. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Valentin and colleagues, for a very excellent discussion. So we have 4 presentations, and we call this the marketplace. We're going to be quite strict on time. We have 4 colleagues that will provide some overview of what they're doing. You have 3 minutes, again, 3 minutes. So I want to start with Mark Schauer from GIZ on reports of economic of drought. And Mark, if you could share your screen, is what I'm understanding that we're doing. Please proceed.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. Let me see if I can find the screen here. Here we are. Can you see that right now?
We're waiting. Yeah, here we go. It's starting.
All right. Okay, so I'll be brief. Thanks for the opportunity to quickly present on the economics of drought, which has been presented at the COP16, which was jointly initiated by UNCCD, the European Commission, and the German Ministry for Development, BMZ, and was conducted eventually by UNCCD, thanks to Birgit and to Daniel for the guidance along the way, and the ELD initiative, Economics of Land Degradation, and UNU INWE in Toronto as a contribution for HYDRA. I'll skip a few here. Slides with 3 minutes to run through. I'll look into opportunities which or the report more looks into opportunities that come from nature-based solutions there. We point out the underestimated costs derived from drought, but also point forward trying to create a narrative with our economic arguments that it pays off to invest into sustainable land management, specifically with this report in nature-based solutions, pointing out the significant potential, as you can see here, and why so far the benefits and the impact of nature-based solutions have been underestimated there. We point towards, we look into different ecosystems with the report. I don't want to name them all here, and point to different measures that improve different services derived from these ecosystems there. An important point is, I think, that nature-based solutions offer no regret options for preparing, responding, and recovering from drought. This is really an investment opportunity and a business case also for the private sector, where we can expect numerous substantial returns for society there. And this has not been done only by the ELD initiative, but by a joint consortium of different contributors here. I don't want to name them all, just have a quick look at the logos here. It's a broad range of supporters who brought in input to the main report, but also a number of case studies here from all around the world. You can see the list here. It comes all the way from Australia. Roberto had a Rodrigo had an input there as well, coming in from Chile, work from Spain, India, all the way, bringing their example from the work in drylands into the report there with different nature-based solution practices and different angles that we looked at it. So just very briefly, main messages. Nature-based solutions provide a number of many tried and tested practices with no regret options. Investing makes very much sense there. There is a business case for the private sector to come in there. We built increased resilience through nature-based solutions there. These investments may require capacity development along the way. Also important not to forget that. We need some more strengthening on the evidence and the monitoring of the true impact of nature-based solutions, and an improved methodology would help for further investments and further tracking of these investments there. I would like to recommend this publication, this flagship report of UNCCD to you, and please have a look at it. It's available online, it's open source. So thank you. These were hopefully within the 3 minutes there. So thanks a lot for the opportunity again.
Thank you, Mark. And again, we'll share the slides once we have them available online. Next, I want to go to EOTech DevTech with Martina Samasarskorska. Martina, sorry. It is over to you if you could share your screen.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So let's start in 3 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity. So with this short presentation, I just want to announce our new EOTech DevNet draft working group. So through EOTech DevNet, Earth Observation Training, Education and Capacity Development Network, we try to leverage existing resources and methods related to Earth observation that we can use for drought monitoring. First, few words about our network. Sorry. So who we are, EOTech DevNet, hopefully you already know since last year, EOTech DevNet is a member of IDMP and really happy to support your work in this direction. So we are 5 partners. Here on the slide, you can see our leadership organizations, UNUSA, WMO, and CGMS, Geo Group on Earth Observation, and CEO's Committee on Earth Observation Satellites. Together, our partners and other members join together the network to improve collaboration among EO capacity building providers, foster exchange of capacity building resources, and through that reduce the application of efforts. And one of our thematic focus is drought monitoring. So what we are doing together with our community of practice that we established in 2022 and already engaged more than 1,400 people, we try to disseminate and also leverage existing resources in 2 thematic areas right now, focused on flood and also drought monitoring. And I'm together with my colleagues, a member of EOTech DevNet Secretariat that help our global task team, our global leadership organization, to promote existing solutions that you can find. So particularly what we are doing through our regional committees of practice that drive our work, we prepare different use cases that could be helpful and guide our users to implement Earth observation information and make the information more accessible through tools like trackers, flat tools trackers that already exist, and the one that we are working right now on related to drought. We try to provide the data and existing information closer to the users. Just to keep this one, this is only an example, and regarding the drought, since last year, we started we worked towards create a new working group related to drought. So starting with consultations with esteemed partners as UNCCD and IDMP that really appreciate its partnership. We had global consultations. We organized webinars, and this year we plan starting the meetings where we, together with our members and practitioners would like to exchange and promote existing solutions based on Earth observation. So, and we start with a meeting next month in April. So what you can do to be involved, please join our first meeting. For Africa, it's 9th of April, Americas region as well. And we have meetings in Asia, Oceania region and Europe on, 10th of April. So please join us. You can use this QR code to connect. And if you are interested in existing solutions using Earth observations for drought monitoring to increase the drought resilience, please join us. We will be happy to share what already exists and provide you a network of experts and professionals to give you support if needed. So thank you, and we invite you to join us. Thank you very much.
You're still muted.
Is that what helps? Sorry, doing too many things at once. Sorry. So next, thank you, Martina. Go to Thais Carvello from Leipzig University, a global analysis of national drought plans. Thais, over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm here to present our work on the global analysis of national drought plans. So with the goal of learning more about drought preparedness at the global level, we are collecting national drought plans. And the group behind this initiative is the Computational Social Sciences for Extreme Events group in the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research. We are based in Leipzig, Germany. The group is led by Mariana de Brito, and I'm a postdoc researcher working in the group. I am leading this project together with Mariana. And we are, so far, we have 90 national and subnational drought documents for 90 countries. In total, we have 241 documents for some, especially for Asia and North America. This is because for some countries, they don't have national drought plans, but plans at the water basin level or at the state level, such as the US or Turkey. As you can imagine, we have plans in many different languages. And to be more precise, we have 17 different languages in the documents. We plan to use large language models to translate the documents to English so we can analyze and process them. Most of the documents were published in the last 10 years. This is probably because of some initiatives that foster the development of national drought plans, such as the UN's Drought Initiative. We plan to use natural language processing to analyze these documents and to explore drought response measures, stakeholder engagement, and the assessment of vulnerable communities in these plans, and to help increase our geographical coverage of the documents. We have collected answers with a form. So we shared this form with our networks and in social media. We have had many different answers to improve our data set, and we are also sharing this form with you. You can find it with this QR code, and I will also share the link in the chat. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for actually being ahead of time. No, very interesting, and we will actually get back to you on that. Lastly, but not, long day. I'd like to introduce Ana Nunez Sanchez from Dataris, talking about the EPIC Drought and Flood Governance Framework. Ana, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Perhaps a fitting presentation to have to close the meeting is to introduce the EPIC Response Framework, which actually creates a mechanism for engaging in policy discussion in a structured manner to identify what are the gaps, the constraints, and opportunities of advancing drought management in a country. So my name is Ana Núñez. I work for Deltares, the think tank based in Delft. And together with the World Bank, I have developed this epic response framework that looks at the governance of flood and drought risk management. For all of those that were present in Riyadh last couple months, the World Bank presented actually the drought risk and resilience assessment. And this drought risk and resilience assessment includes the drought part of this overall framework. So I'm not going to go into many details because I know I'm the last person standing on this long meeting, but just to let you know that we have a tried and tested methodology that really helps break silos and move the agenda forward in both floods and drought management. I think we talk about some of the results and the recommendations coming out of the COP16 was the need to sort of like have cross-sectoral collaboration and also whole of society approaches. So this is precisely the two principles that we operationalize through the EPIC response framework, because of course we understand that there is a number of different agencies at the national level, at the national government that works in drought and flood management. So we really look at how to break the silos across these agencies. This is the whole of government principle that we apply. We also have a whole of society principle, also very much operationalized through this methodology, where we look at how the national government can really engage with citizens, those excluded, the scientific community and others, to really join efforts towards a common resilience objective. And of course, an understanding that many of the countries, and more so with the onset of climate change, are going to be suffering both floods and droughts in the same territory. So it is important to look at these synergies. So just to let you know that, again, we do have a methodology that we have applied a dozen of countries around the world in the last year and a half to, great success, and being able to provide very concrete investment. We've been able to provide inputs to millions of dollars of investments decisions at the bank and other. So you can find information online. Here's my email also. Reach out if you need to. And thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ana. No, that's very good. So, so excellent presentations. Again, we're going to, with the agreement of the presenters, we'll put those online and so people can find out more information. So I know we're just slightly past. We won't take too much more of your time. This has been an excellent discussion. So actually, I'm just looking at my notes here. So I'd like to go to Dragana Matrikova from GWP to talk about some upcoming competitions and other activities. Dragana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bob. I know we are a bit over time, but it will take just 1 minute. I want to encourage you to participate in our photo competition that is focusing on solutions. Solutions that inspire change is the name of the photo competition, and I'll share a link in the chat. And just to briefly point out that we have 4 categories: technological and AI solutions, governance solutions, gender responsive solutions, and nature-based solutions. So I'm sure most of you have a lot of photos of different solutions when it comes to drought. So please do share. We're not looking for devastating. We're not looking for photos showing the devastating impact of drought, but quite the opposite. We want to inspire hope and change and action. So please do send them to us. And just to say, in terms of the timeline, you can send your submissions until the 31st of March. And I'm not going to share what the price will be, because I would like you to go and see for yourselves. But I'll stop sharing here and I'll just put the link in the chat. Please join the photo competition. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Dragana, for that. Excellent. So just one more thing. as Dragana has showed, I also like to, if actually Sabina or Valentin can put this in the chat, invite you to the community of practice for the IDMP. And while that's going on, James, if you can put up the last POLEV question. So again, we also have a community of practice for the Integrated Drought Management Program. And one final question. In your mind, what are the main barriers preventing progress on global drought action? So as we do that, I just want to thank all the presenters, from Bergie, Michael, Rodrigo, maybe I don't miss anybody, of course, Valentin, and of course, our marketplace colleagues, Mark, Martina, Thais, and Anna, Dragana for her intervention. So this is just, and we'll publish these because we'll probably end here very soon. The results of the POLEV, again, this is an unscientific, but this gets a gauge of what people think of going on. We'll also try to share the chat. I see a lot of conversations based on the drought plans. That's quite interesting to also see. And there's some other questions as well, which we'll try to maybe answer offline if possible. So actually, we're only about 5 minutes over, and I'm looking at my notes here, and this is the wrap up. So again, not a surprise. The main barriers are lack of political will, almost 50%. Next, coordination challenges between stakeholders, insufficient funding, and then climate change impacts exacerbating drought and flood severity. Interesting that nobody has said technical capacity gaps. So there just seemed to be a feeling out there that on the technical side, people have information. We have 35 respondents. Thanks, James. I now see where the number of people are. We'll keep on responding. Again, I want to thank you on behalf of the Integrated Drought Management Program partners, WMO, the Global Water Partnership, and also the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and everybody else. This is a global community, and thank you for your time. This virtual exchange did receive a lot of interest. Yes, so that seems to be a topic of conversation in our community. I will leave it there. Again, we'll put these links online, and I think we have everybody's email address from the Zoom link, and we'll also share information and possibly some of the answers to questions if we can answer them. So with that, thank you for successful virtual exchange on this topic of UNCCD COP16 and what's next. Have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take care. Bye.